To speak about the history of the Christmas nativity scene or Christmas cribs, we need first to talk about the beginning, the history of Christmas. In the early church, when the first Christians gathered, they were more struck by the mystery of the death and the resurrection of the Lord. This was at the center of their faith and the center of their celebration, the Paschal mystery. But then gradually, the idea came to talk about the birth of Jesus. And we had beautiful texts in the Bible talking about the birth of Jesus. So how can we represent that? But then when should we celebrate the birth of Jesus? In the Roman calendar, the beginning of winter, when the days started to become longer and longer, there was a celebration to the sun that rise again, that starts growing again, and they celebrated the sun, the light of the world. So the Christian felt that this could be a good time to celebrate also the light of God that comes into our world. Donc, Christmas was celebrated at this moment. But then there was a long time before we could represent what has happened when Christ was born. And in the 10th century they started having scenes with people who came on the scene to represent the shepherds, the Jesus and Mary, and they would do kind of a little sketch to represent that. And starting from this sketch, it is Francis of Assisi in 1223, in a small place near Assisi in Greccio. He decided to make this celebration in the night of Christmas, a very special celebration with all these persons coming to celebrate that. And this gave the idea that we could at some point represent these in a more formal way. Then it took another 200 or 300 years before they decided to say, well, why don't we make little little people that can be seen as representing Jesus, Mary, Joseph, the Magi, the shepherds. So they started making these little cribs. And this became very popular. They were making these in the churches. But then sooner or later, people wanted to have some in their houses. So they made small cribs in the different houses. This was the time when missionaries started coming from Europe. And here in Canada, missionaries came mostly from France, some from Italy, from Spain, and then they brought this tradition of the Christmas scenes that people could have the same Christmas. But then people from here, they wanted also these cribs to represent the way we are living here. So the Gospel tells us that Christ is born in a manger, in a place where animals are fed. So where do we find mangers? We find them in a barn. We find them in a place where people come and eat, in a stable. So they started making these cribs in a stable. And this was the way they would do things. And they continue to represent Christ in this way, doing it in their own way. Sometimes even in our homes, children would work to make these little places, these little houses where Jesus will be born, and then they were proud to do that. This tradition became very popular, so much that even in our school we started having contests of people who are those who will make the more beautiful Christmas scene. So children would do these scenes, and then at some point with paperwork, for instance, with Roi de la Fortune, we had these little persons made with papers. We had these beautiful scenes that people had. And here at the Oratory in 1977-78, we invited schools to come together and bring an exhibition of their scenes. So this is the way it was done before we started having our beautiful Christmas cribs with cribs from all over the world. Then, in 1950, there were people in Mont-Royal, businessmen, who felt that in the business, Christmas has become too pagan. There was nothing Christian in that. So they wanted to have a place where they would have a beautiful Christmas crib for everybody. And what better place to do that than in front of Saint Joseph Oratory, right near to the road where people would pass and see this beautiful crib. Then the Oratory got the idea, why don't we do that every year? Then they asked artists to prepare statues to make these cribs. This is the statues that we have now here that represent the scene of Christmas. Then every year we will build a stable and we'll bring all these figures inside the stable to have this beautiful sceneries that thousands of people will come and see, so that we'll see that. But then in Canada, we started doing cribs from what we saw, a stable, a barn with a little snow on the top as we had in the winter in all our places. But all over the world also people started looking at these cribs and said, why don't we do it from our own perspective? How can we do it from different style? And this is the way we started having different ways to show these. This is precisely what you see when we have our exhibition of cribs here at the Oratory. But what is behind all these cribs? It's a time to remember the story that the Christmas scene gives to us every day, every year. And as we celebrate this moment, I wish to all of you a very Merry Christmas.